It's freezing, with a wind chill temperature of around minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit. There's a snowstorm coming, and you and the boys are in the mountains on a skiing expedition. You pitch up your tent and hunker down for the evening, hoping for the storm to pass. But at some point in the night, something happens that sends you running from the safety of your tent down the mountain into the wilderness to your demise. What was it that drove 9 Russian hikers to their deaths on that cold, snowy night in 1959? An avalanche? Abominable snowmen? A covert military operation? Aliens? Let's find out. Welcome to another episode of The Blair Itch. Welcome to The Blair Itch, the show that scratches that spooky stories and true crime itch that's been bothering you for weeks. Gross. Hold on a minute, hold on. That's much better. Today, we're heading over to Soviet Russia to hear a story so spooky, you'll never want to go camping again. Joke's on you, I never wanted to go camping in the first place. It's too intense for me. Thank you. I'm here all night. Well, for the next sort of 10 minutes or something anyway. This is a story of mystery, intrigue, and one just so eerie, I'm sure it will stick with you long after we're done. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. This is the story of the Dyatlov Pass Incident. On the night of February 1st, 1959, 9 experienced hikers disappeared under mysterious and chilling circumstances in the Ural Mountains of the Soviet Union. Their journey was meant to be a challenge, but no one could have predicted the tragedy that would unfold. What became known as the Dyatlov Pass Incident remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. Led by 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, the group consisted of university students and experienced outdoor enthusiasts. They were on an expedition to reach Ural Mountain, a journey that would take them through the unforgiving terrain of the Siberian wilderness. Now, there's a few things you need to understand. The 9 hikers, which were 7 men and 2 women, they were very experienced hikers, you know, they did this all the time. They were actually grade 2 certified, and upon completion of this expedition, they would be getting their grade 3 certificates, which at the time was sort of the highest level of certification you could get in Russia. They were all friends and attended the same university together, which meant they knew each other inside out, strong bonds, you know, they trusted each other. Now, this expedition was nothing out of the ordinary, alright? It was challenging. The route, in fact, covered over 300 kilometers, which, you know, I struggle walking to the shop, which is 200 yards away. In fact, I drive my car there because I'm sorry, I'm lazy. Sorry, Greta Thunberg, please don't throw me in prison. Now, another thing you need to understand about Siberia is it is enormous. It is remote. It is desolate. It is a huge place. It is treacherous. Now, the weather, especially in sort of January, February, winter time, it is unpredictable. It can be freezing cold. Snowstorms and blizzards can just blow in out of nowhere. It is a very, very dangerous place. And one mistake could spell disaster for the whole group. Not only that, the forests and woodland of Siberia are filled with dangerous animals like wolves and bears, you know. I've camped many times in the English countryside, so I like to consider myself a little bit of a camping expert. The only thing we have to worry about in England is, you know, badgers or foxes or occasional crackhead or Noel Edmonds or something. You know, when I go camping in England, I am not really putting my life at risk. These guys are, but it was still normal to them. They did this all the time. It was nothing out of the ordinary. Now, before Dyatlov left, he promised that he would send a telegram back to his sports club, which would let them know they were safe and they were on the way back. When this failed to transpire, the relatives of the hikers demanded that there was a search party sent out, and almost immediately a rescue operation began. But what they discovered was far more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. On February 26th, rescuers finally located the hikers' campsite buried under a layer of snow. But something was horribly wrong. The tent was torn open from the inside, cut with a knife, as if the group had fled in panic. The hikers' belongings were found inside the tent, along with food and clothing, which seemed to back this theory. 9 sets of footprints, left by people wearing only socks or a single shoe or even barefoot, could be followed, leading down to the edge of a nearby wood. Here, rescuers also found the visible remains of a small fire beneath a large Siberian pine tree. Looking at the tree itself, they could see the branches were broken up to 5 meters high, suggesting that someone had climbed the tree, perhaps looking for the camp in the dark, or trying to hide from something. The first bodies were discovered nearby, shoeless and dressed inadequately for the freezing temperatures. Between the pine and the camp, the searchers found 3 more corpses: Dyatlov, Kolmogorova and Slobodin, who were frozen in poses suggesting that they were attempting to return to the camp. What could have driven 9 experienced hikers to just abandon the safety of their shelter and wander out into the freezing cold night? Soviet investigators were baffled. Over the following weeks, the remaining bodies were found. Some were in a small ravine, dressed in pieces of clothing that appeared to have been taken from others in the group. One of them, for example, was wearing the other's burned and torn trousers and had a torn jacket wrapped around her leg. Several showed signs of trauma. One had a fractured skull, 2 had severe chest injuries, yet no external wounds. The force required to cause such injuries was likened to a car crash. Now, the injuries were odd. They weren't consistent with a typical fall or injuries you would expect to see from an avalanche, and there was no indications of a struggle in the camp. There were no large animal tracks in the snow, so it wasn't like they were attacked by a bear or something like that. Now, perhaps most disturbingly, some of the corpses were missing their eyeballs and their tongues. Now, this could have been caused by natural decomposition, but the cold and dry environment normally preserves bodies really, really well. Don't ask me how I know. So what happened? An avalanche? A violent encounter of some kind? Natural causes? The theories ran wild, but none of them seemed to make any sense. For decades, the mystery of what happened at Dyatlov Pass has gripped the imaginations of conspiracy theorists and investigators alike. Some believe the group encountered a deadly snow slab avalanche. Others suggest infrasound caused by wind patterns induced intense panic and disorientation. There are even more sinister theories. Government experiments, secret military testing, or a violent encounter with the indigenous Mansi people, local reindeer herders who lived in the area. The Soviets were known for conducting secret experiments in the remote wilderness. Could the hikers have stumbled upon something they weren't supposed to see? Perhaps there were weapons tests in the area that night, which would explain the strange injuries and radiation found on some of their clothes. That's right, low levels of radiation were found on some of the hikers' clothes, and according to some of the relatives who viewed the bodies when they were brought back to the city, they reported that their skin had turned orange and their hair had gone grey, which only added another layer of confusion to this already confusing case. And then, there are the more outlandish theories. Some claim the group were attacked by a mythical creature like the Russian Yeti. The last shot taken on one of the hikers' cameras shows a mysterious figure emerging from the tree line. Others believe the hikers witnessed a UFO sighting, panicking and fleeing in terror.
Now, while these theories are imaginative and they do make for a great story, thank you very much, most of them have natural explanations. For example, the undressing of the hikers could be explained by hypothermia. Now, hypothermia can induce a condition known as paradoxical undressing, which is where you feel like you are boiling hot, you are burning up, but actually you are freezing to death. So in a confused state, a lot of people suffering from hypothermia will undress themselves and then die of exposure, basically. It's kind of like the inverse of when you have a fever and you feel freezing cold and you want to wrap up warm, but you're actually boiling hot, and wrapping up warm can kill you. I think that explains the undressing, at least to an extent. The orange skin and grey hair, that could simply be caused by mummification of the bodies in the dry and cold environment. And the photograph of the strange figure emerging from the tree line, well, I think that's probably just one of the hikers taking a cheeky snap of his mate coming back from a poo. But even skeptics struggle to explain every detail. What caused the hikers to flee in such haste? Why was the tent cut from the inside? What about the missing body parts? Nobody has the definitive answers.
In 2020, Russian authorities reopened the case. Their conclusion? An avalanche. They stated a small snowslide could have struck the tent, causing the group to panic and flee into the night, but many remain unconvinced. While the avalanche theory explains some aspects, it doesn't fit with the scene that rescuers found. There was no obvious sign of an avalanche, and the injuries were inconsistent with typical avalanche-related deaths. Today, the Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of the most enduring mysteries of the modern era. Though many investigations have been conducted, the full truth may never be known. What happened to Igor Dyatlov and his team on that cold February night? The pass, now named after the group's leader, is a solemn reminder of the power and unpredictability of nature and the human tendency to seek answers in the face of the unknown. Maybe some mysteries are never meant to be solved.
The Dyatlov Pass incident, it remains an enduring mystery, and because there were no survivors left behind to recount their tales of that fateful night in February 1959, we can only speculate and piece together the little bits of physical evidence we do have. So my theory is there was a small avalanche. They woke up in a panic, they couldn't get out the entrance to the tent because snow had crushed the entranceway, so they quickly cut themselves out of the tent. They emerged into the night, and the avalanche at this stage was still ongoing. You know, there was still snow coming down, so they panicked. They had to get out of there. There was no time to grab everything. They ran down towards the tree line where they thought they would be safe. Now, because the weather was awful, and we're talking blizzard conditions, they became separated. The visibility was terrible. They couldn't see each other. They got lost in the dark. It was freezing cold, in the wind. They are exposed. They didn't have warm weather clothing on. It was all back in the tents, and they froze to death. That is what I think happened. I think it's simply just a case of death by misadventure. I'm just a weird guy from England though. I've got no forensic qualifications. I'm not even very smart, but it is fun to imagine and speculate and theorize what we think did happen that evening. So let me know down in the comments, what do you think happened? Let me hear your theories. I'd love to hear the wild, the wacky, and the logical and the rational. They're all great, and maybe it'll be a fun thing for you to think about at 2 in the morning when you're in the middle of nowhere on your next camping trip. In the meantime, guys, stay safe and thank you so much for watching. I will catch you in the next one. Take care of yourselves. Peace.